after being kicked out of my room for their parents, I made an amazing move they'll never forget. Emma had always thought of her room as a sanctuary, a place where she could escape from the chaos of life. But suddenly, it felt like a jail cell when her parents invited over the Thompson family, their 2 kids siphoning away every ounce of comfort. They ran through the house like wild animals, practically obliterating her world of pressed flowers and soothing lavender scents. They were loud, privileged, and unapologetic in their entitlement, turning the cozy corners of her home into playgrounds of excess. Emma bristled as she watched her space become their playground. It sparked a frustration that simmered into determination. What was she even doing here? It felt like she was fading into the background, an afterthought in her own story. The thoughts spiraled in her mind, each racing heartbeat echoing the dread that whispered she'd never be enough. So, in a moment of defiance, she decided to take her power back, channeling her energy into an ambitious project for the upcoming science fair. Emma's heart raced as she dove into her late grandmother's research, archives that had dust settled thick over them in a forgotten attic. A botanist in her own right, Emma's grandmother crafted her life amidst prejudice and challenges, and yet her work had never received the recognition it deserved. Emma yearned to unveil this hidden legacy, to bring it into the light, and in the process, pulled herself from the shadows of her own home. But as she lay out her plans, the looming specter of self-doubt returned uninvited. The Thompson kids were not just intruders. Tyler, in particular, acted as if wealth could cover up his lack of genuine talent. His dismissive smirks and biting commentary made her skin crawl. As those moments of insecurity crept in, she felt the weight of her ambition pressing down on her chest like a bear trap. "What if I fail?" echoed inside her, gnawing at her confidence. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The afternoon slipped by in a blur, and soon the science fair loomed in front of her like a colossal wave ready to break. Emma fine-tuned her project, blending her grandmother's research with the latest technology, believing that something revolutionary was brewing. Yet the fear of being overshadowed by Tyler's pompous charm loomed like a dark cloud. He was the embodiment of effortless superiority.
The closer the event got, the more Emma felt like a marionette, strings tangling, bound by the weight of expectation and uncertainty. As she rehearsed her presentation in front of her mirror, her resolve felt precarious. The quiet of her room contrasted sharply with the tempest in her mind, and a moment of paralyzed anguish gripped her as she wondered if she would ever be more than a ghost in her own life. The science fair was mere days away, and with every tick of the clock, her heart sunk, burdened by the escalating anxiety. What if her moment in the spotlight turned into another forgotten footnote? For the first time in her life, she wasn't just battling against others, she was fighting against herself. Faced with the ultimate question, could she truly measure up to the weight of her family's legacy and her own aspirations? Emma sat at her desk, surrounded by a chaotic mix of research papers, colorful sticky notes, and various plant samples. Each item seemed to convey not just her effort, but the stakes that had entangled themselves around her heart. The weight of her family's legacy and her desire to carve her own path knotted tightly together within her. She knew that the coming days would not only determine her science fair project's fate, but also illuminate the crossroads of her identity. Determination surged within her, and she began meticulously organizing her materials, breathing life into her grandmother's forgotten work. Emma's fingers brushed over the yellowed pages, their worn edges echoing the struggles of past generations. It was almost as if the paper spoke to her, urging her to harness their legacy, to resurrect that lost voice that so desperately needed to be heard. But just as the motivation flared, a voice flickered in her mind, one that sounded eerily familiar. "What makes you think you can stand up to Tyler? He's everything you're not. This project, your grandmother's work, do you really believe you can measure up?" The taunting echoed through her thoughts, spelling out her insecurities with clarity. It angered her, yet it was undeniably a reflection of her fears. Emma took a deep breath, forcing the negative voice to recede as she focused on what was at stake. For the first time, she began thinking not about comparison, but about connection. She had a narrative that transcended mere competition. Her mission was to evoke awareness of an often overlooked figure. In that moment, Emma decided to shed the notion of measuring up. Instead, she would present an honest portrayal of her grandmother's contributions, hoping to challenge the indifference that Tyler embodied. With renewed focus, she embraced the upcoming presentation. This wasn't merely a competition. This was a mission to keep her grandmother's spirit alive. Each plant sample, every explanation, had become more than just components of her project. They were to be the vessels of knowledge and resilience. The fear that had strangled her began to dissolve into a simmering resolve. She picked up her smartphone, capturing snippets of her experiments and discoveries as she began recording her thoughts, treating the project as if she were already sharing it with an audience. As evening descended, Emma found solace in her growing excitement. Each moment she spent on the project redefined her narrative, shaping her certainty and her capabilities. She could neither afford to bend under the expectations of her parents, nor wilt under the weight of Tyler's scorn. The feelings of victimization were replaced by the empowering conviction that she was crafting her destiny with her own hands. Days rushed by, and before Emma realized, it was the eve of the science fair. The weight of anticipation fell heavily on her chest. She practiced her pitch repeatedly, sharpening her words like a sword. But now a new concern nagged at her. What if the project itself faltered? Could she deliver her presentation without succumbing to anxiety? The moment of truth sent waves of panic through her, but her shaky hands juxtaposed exhilarating potential. Just like the resilient plants she studied, she too was growing, even in the face of adversity. Emma glanced around her transformed workspace, filled with purpose and intention. She resolved to confront Tyler head-on, not just as a competitor, but as a representation of the self-doubt and privilege she sought to challenge. With a steadying breath, she whispered to herself, "I'm not just here to compete. I'm here to make a statement." As she steadied her resolve for what lay ahead, the final question resided silently within her. Would she rise to the challenge or allow her doubts to extinguish her flame? The dawn of the science fair would force her to confront not only Tyler, but the shadows lurking within her psyche. Emma's eyes blazed with determination as she prepared to step out of the shadows and step into the light, ready to claim the legacy that was hers to tell. Emma stood in front of the mirror, rehearsing her presentation for the umpteenth time. The reflection staring back at her was a blend of confidence and anxiety, both battling for dominance. With every word she recited, the hard-earned knowledge from her research surged within her, yet the vibrations of doubt lingered like a shadow just out of reach. The moment felt surreal, a culmination of months of dedication and turmoil, her past colliding with the present as she prepared to share her grandmother's legacy. The anxiety surged again as she recalled Tyler's smirk from the last group meeting, the way he had effortlessly drawn attention from the others while she struggled for words. But now she saw him anew, not as an insurmountable wall to climb, but as a rival whose presence fueled her resolve. What does he know about legacy, she thought. Emma had something to offer that transcended mere accolades or acclaim.
Focus narrowed into a singular point, and Emma remembered her grandmother's voice, telling her stories of resilience in a world that often dismissed women's contributions. Those tales, now intertwined with her project, sparkled with potential. They were more than scientific data. They were narratives that deserved to be elevated. Taking a shuddering breath, she steadied herself, reciting lines about her grandmother's passion for botany, the challenges she had faced, and the innovations she had brought to the field. With each retelling, Emma felt a new kind of strength rise within her. She would not merely be retelling facts, she would encapsulate a life of determination and purpose. It began to dawn on her that perhaps this moment was not just about proving herself to others, but about affirming her own identity and her place within that family legacy. As she fine-tuned her pitch for the 100th time, the rhythmic tick-tock of the clock in her room reminded her of time slipping away. Anxiety twisted her stomach into knots, but along with it awakened a fierce hunger for triumph. What will I regret more, failing to speak my truth or letting fear stifle my voice? Underneath the stress, Emma unexpectedly discovered clarity. She decided that if things fell apart during her presentation, it wouldn't be the end. It would merely be a step in her journey, a journey of self-discovery. Every misspoken word or fumbled fact at the science fair would only push her to improve. That thought anchored her. She realized she was not just stepping up to battle against Tyler, but also against the self-doubt that had often kept her at bay.
Emma began jotting down a few notes, not merely on her project, but on the emotional investment that fueled her mission. The connection she felt to her grandmother's legacy filled her heart. Turning to face her workspace once more, the multitude of papers and plants seemed to shimmer, no longer just clutter, but a vivid tapestry of history and strength. With each passing moment, the adrenaline racing through her veins turned from a paralyzing force to a powerful motivator. She would present passionately, authentically, and perhaps most importantly, she would present herself. As midnight approached, Emma finalized her materials, her mind racing with ideas. But a different fear gnawed at the edges of her thoughts. What if the judges saw her project but didn't see her? What if, in the whirlwind of competition, her voice got drowned out amidst all the accolades that others were trying to capture? The clash of uncertainty prompted an urgent realization. She had to not only present her project, but also assert her role as its rightful advocate. Standing before her presentation board, Emma gathered every ounce of determination. The moment of truth was indeed arriving, but she now felt an intense assurance rising.
The time had come to face her fears, not just Tyler's intimidation, but also the inner critic that had kept her muted for too long. Tomorrow would reveal whether she could rise above the wave of doubt, and as she reflected on the unfolding path, a realization settled deep within her. And that moment, between anticipation and fear, it occurred to her. This chapter in her life was about more than just a science fair. It was about discovering her worth in the narrative she was writing. Would she connect with her audience and deliver her grandmother's story, or would she allow herself to recede into the background once again? Emma's heart raced as the sun began to rise, casting a golden hue over her workspace. Sleep had eluded her, replaced by a relentless stream of thoughts. Yet, as she prepared for the day ahead, the fatigue forged a peculiar kind of clarity, one that invigorated her spirit and stoked the fires of determination. Today, she would not merely be an observer, she would become the focal point of a legacy. The shadows of self-doubt still lingered. However, Emma harnessed that uncertainty into a strategic resolve. The whispers of what if and I can't transformed into a mantra of what if I can and I will. She meticulously packed her materials, transforming an assemblage of notes, diagrams, and trinkets into a cohesive tapestry that told her grandmother's tale, with her own identity laced throughout. As she walked through the corridor of her school, the buzz of excited voices filled her ears. The scent of freshly baked goods wafted from the cafeteria, but her stomach twisted not from hunger, but from anticipation. She spotted Tyler across the hallway, confidently surrounded by peers, laughing and gesturing animatedly. A knot of tension tightened in her stomach, but Emma didn't falter. She had made a choice, to see his presence not as a stumbling block, but as a reminder of the path she had chosen for herself. Emma entered the auditorium, a vast arena of sharp lights and rows upon rows of faces. Her heart thudded against her ribcage, loud enough to drown out the chatter. But with every pulse, she drew strength from her grandmother's trials and triumphs. It was enough to instill a calm focus amidst the storm of nerves. As the presenters before her delivered polished performances, Emma analyzed their strategies. Some relied on wit, while others dazzled with data, but each contained an undeniable thread of self. The realization struck her. They were vulnerable too, sharing their stories, hopes, and enterprising dreams. In that moment, she understood that her own presentation wasn't merely an academic exercise. It was an invitation into her life and history. When her name was called, a wave of determination washed over her. Emma stepped onto the stage, feeling the weight of both her family's legacy and her own aspirations. The bright lights blurred the audience into indistinct shapes, but she wouldn't let fear define her. She began her narrative not with dry statistics, but with a memory evoked, a moment spent in the garden with her grandmother, hands in soil, laughing, planting seeds of passion that took root in her heart. As Emma spoke, she poured herself into the story, weaving in the highs and lows of her grandmother's journey, connecting both pain and triumph to her own life. Each word felt like a bridge, connecting the legacies of past and present. Her hands moved with purpose, illustrating her points with accompanying visuals that breathed life into the project. Yet, as she glimpsed Tyler's expression in the back, his eyes narrowed in concentration, a new realization hit her. Perhaps it wasn't victory over him she sought, but rather the ability to stand strong in her truth. It was the essence of her growth, the narrative of empowerment she wanted others to see, including him. Finishing her presentation with a heartfelt plea to honor the contributions of women in science, she could feel the applause ripple through the auditorium. Relief washed over her, mingling with exhilaration. Standing tall, she had brought her truth to life. As she stepped off the stage, she was quickly enveloped in congratulatory remarks, but her satisfaction stemmed from something deeper. She had faced her fears head-on, revealing not just her project, but the courage to express who she was. Yet, as her confidence began to swell, a thought disrupted the euphoria, a sudden realization of what this accomplishment meant for her moving forward. This was merely the beginning, a fragile unraveling of layers that needed exploring. The challenge now lay in maintaining that newfound strength as she navigated a world still full of uncertainties, including her place amongst those who had once made her feel small. Emma glanced at the crowd again, feeling different as she stepped into her new chapter. What awaited her on the horizon might be daunting, but a flicker of excitement ignited within her. She turned to find Tyler approaching, his expression unreadable. The time had come to confront this rivalry, and perhaps even forge an unexpected alliance. Could she redefine what it meant to compete, shifting from conflict to collaboration as she stepped boldly into her future? Emma stood in the midst of congratulatory remarks, her heart still racing from the adrenaline of her presentation. As Tyler approached, she felt a blend of curiosity and caution. Would this encounter shift the tides of their rivalry? "Hey, Emma," he said, his voice surprisingly warm. "That was really good. You captured something special back there." His compliment took her off guard. "Thanks, Tyler. I mean, it felt important to share our stories, right?" She fought to keep her tone even, reminding herself that this was a moment for growth, not defensiveness. Maybe he was ready to engage on a more collaborative level. "I didn't know your grandmother had such an incredible journey," he continued, his brow furrowing slightly. "You've got a way of making it relatable. It feels like you're carrying her legacy in a real way." Emma took a breath, not sure how to respond to his sincerity. Could this be the moment where her impression of him shifted too? "It's a part of who I am. I guess we all carry legacies, even if we don't realize it." For a second, Tyler looked contemplative, as if her words had struck a chord. "Yeah, I think you're right. We just approach things differently." The air between them hung with an unexpected tension, one that suggested possibilities her mind had not yet fully explored. She had always viewed him as the competition, a remnant of her own insecurities. But now, gazing into his thoughtful eyes, she could sense a yearning for connection, even understanding. In that moment, she recognized a vital truth. Competition was often a veil over the need for collaboration. What would it mean, she pondered, to learn from each other rather than see one another as threats? "Why don't we work on something together?" she blurted out, surprising even herself. "I mean, we can showcase dual perspectives on legacies, tie in our different backgrounds. It could be powerful." "Powerful," he echoed, as he considered her words. A flicker of excitement washed over his gaze. "I like it, but would our ideas even blend?" Emma thought for a moment. "We'll have to find a way. Maybe each of us presents a section through our lens, then add a discussion on the duality of legacy." "I think that could work," Tyler said, a smile breaking through, reflecting the ever-complex layers of their relationship. As they exchanged ideas, Emma felt a surge of hope. Both the fear and tension that had often characterized her encounters with him began to dissolve. Instead of trying to conquer one another, they were charting new territory. But as they began to sketch out their plan, a shadow of doubt crept back into her mind. What if this collaboration fell apart? What if Tyler's past behavior resurfaced in an unexpected moment, reopening old wounds? Emma had thrust herself into a new arena of cooperation, yet the stakes felt alarmingly high. I could feel her instincts pulling her into a cautious retreat, but a clearer voice chimed within. This was her chance to forge something meaningful. "Emma," Tyler interrupted her reverie, his eyes searching her face. "Are we in this together?" In that instant, a mixture of trepidation and determination settled within her. "Yes," she affirmed, feeling the weight of their pact. Taking this leap could either secure her growth or unravel it in unforeseen ways. With their tentative partnership established, Emma finally felt the threads of her legacy intertwining with an evolving definition of collaboration. Yet beneath her excitement lingered that familiar pulse of fear. What came next could either ascend to new heights or crash into unforgiving pitfalls.
As they brainstormed more ideas, Emma's mind raced with possibilities, her heart torn between hope and anxiety. This was a path toward uncharted complexities and vulnerabilities, leading her deeper into the enigma of her own identity. But what if challenging her fear only revealed more about herself than she had ever imagined? The balance between vulnerability and courage hung delicately in the air, waiting to be tested, just as her resolve for this newfound partnership trembled on the brink of transformation. The initial excitement of their collaboration began to fade as the reality of their workload settled in. Emma glanced at the notes they'd scribbled down, a mix of ideas that seemed to dance just out of focus. The entwined narratives of legacy felt too vast, perhaps even overwhelming. How could they weave their stories together without losing their individual voices? As much as I love this idea, Emma said, trying to infuse some strategy into their planning, we need to establish clear roles or risk stepping on each other's toes. Tyler nodded, his expression shifting from enthusiasm to concentration. You're right. We can't just throw our ideas together and hope for a miracle. Inwardly, Emma found herself grappling with the truth of that statement. It was so easy to let ambition drown out clarity. Her desire to succeed could easily cloud her judgment if she wasn't careful. Was it her instinct to control and direct that brought her past victories? Or had she often missed out on invaluable contributions by holding on too tightly? They decided to meet every Friday afternoon, a designated time to bounce ideas off each other and refine their project. Emma found herself surprisingly excited about the structure. It felt like they were embarking on a shared adventure rather than a crossfire of rivalry. However, that excitement was marred by the growing stress of their deadlines. As the weeks progressed, Emma noticed an unsettling pattern. While she found herself buried under research and writing, Tyler often offered vague remarks that seemed ungrounded in the intricacies of their project. Once, after a particularly grueling session, Emma confronted him. You seem a bit distant lately. Are you actually invested in this? Because it feels like I'm the only one doing the heavy lifting. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, his initial surprise subsiding into defensiveness. I have ideas, Emma. I'm just trying to think them through before I speak up. I don't want to derail us. But that response deepened Emma's uncertainty. What if he was still the competitive spirit she had often perceived? Was their alliance crumbling under the weight of his indecision? Her internal questions morphed into doubt, manifesting as a familiar anxiety that looped through her mind.
She took a moment to breathe, reminding herself of the intent behind their partnership, collaboration. But that required vulnerability, something she still struggled with. What if the project wasn't just about legacies, but about her own capacity to embrace the messiness of working with someone else, someone like Tyler? Can we create a timeline? She suggested cautiously. We need to hold each other accountable. It'll help keep us committed. Visibly relieved, Tyler agreed. As they delineated the plan, Emma felt a flicker of clarity. This structure could infuse their collaboration with purpose, but the underlying concerns about Tyler's consistency lingered at the edge of her thoughts. Attending these meetings became an exercise in both perseverance and introspection. Each session revealed gaps in their communication. Tyler often glossed over key aspects of their project, leading Emma to feel unsettled, a nagging sensation that he wasn't meeting her halfway. One Friday, something shifted. As they sat, surrounded by a sea of papers and open laptops, Emma tapped into a different part of her mindset. Instead of retreating into frustration, she decided to articulate her own aspirations clearly, including her vision, her needs. Tyler, she said, gauging his response, I think we need to be more open about where we want this to go. I value your perspective, but I also need to feel like we're heading in the same direction together. His expression softened, and for the first time she saw the competitive glint fade, replaced by recognition. I need to be more transparent too. I can see that I've been holding back. Let's really commit to this. As they began to share more openly, a surprising ease imbued their discussions. With every idea exchanged, Emma felt herself expanding. She was confronting fear while claiming authority over her own contribution. This process of growth began to feel like real teamwork. Still, uncertainty loomed. Emma couldn't ignore that they were teetering on the edge of a breakthrough or a breakdown. Their partnership hinged on both authenticity and the collective effort, and the stakes were higher than she had anticipated. Next Friday, she had to present her draft of their project to the committee, and she couldn't shake the creeping sensation that maybe Tyler's best intentions would still fall short.
Would this compromise bring them closer or tear them apart? Emma knew she had to prepare herself for whatever revelation awaited her in the discussion. The moment of truth felt imminent, and uncertainty blended with adrenaline as she prepared for the challenge ahead. Emma woke with a knot of tension coiling in her stomach, an unwelcome companion as she faced the day of her presentation. The pressure was tangible, layering expectations upon her like heavy fog. Today wasn't just about showcasing their draft. It was about defining her relationship with Tyler. Professional, personal, ambiguous. After a quick breakfast, she sat at her kitchen table, her laptop open to a mosaic of documents and notes, reflecting their collective ambitions. The words blurred, their meanings crowding and colliding like the myriad thoughts racing through her mind. What would the committee think? Would they see potential, or would her carefully constructed walls come crashing down under scrutiny? She inhaled deeply, searching for calm. This presentation was not solely a performance. It was her opportunity to showcase not only their project, but the strength she had begun to forge in collaboration. Wasn't it time to step into the vulnerability of the moment with conviction? Gathering herself, she turned her focus from fear of judgment to excitement for the possibilities ahead. At precisely 3 o'clock, Emma and Tyler met in the conference room, an expansive space marked by glass walls, casting fragments of light onto the polished floor. The committee members arrived shortly afterward, their mixed expressions shifting between expectation and indifference. Emma knew this was a moment that demanded her full composure. As Tyler began to speak, Emma watched him, the confidence of his presence momentarily easing her nerves. He explained their concept clearly, expressing the intertwined narratives they sought to explore. But as he moved into the details, Emma noticed his usual hesitations creeping back in again. His words faltered on the edge of clarity and vagueness, leaving her feeling stranded and uncertain. When Tyler turned to her, she felt the weight of his eyes, silently pleading for her to carry the momentum. This was the moment she had anticipated, the point where she could either sink or swim. Gathering her thoughts, she rose to the occasion. "Thank you, Tyler," she began, feeling the power of her own voice resonating through the room. "I'd like to dive deeper into our research and how it supports our vision." She meticulously outlined their findings, her passion igniting the room as she deftly connected each point to the overarching narratives they intended to craft. With every confident phrase, she reclaimed the control she had so often restrained for fear of overshadowing her partner. As she spoke, Emma realized this realization transcended the project. It was about her growth, her ability to collaborate while standing firmly in her own power. She could be both a team player and a leader, weaving her individuality seamlessly into the fabric of a shared vision. Shrugging off the suffocating fear, she fully embraced being an equal partner in this creative endeavor. The committee listened intently, their expressions shifting from passive observers to engaged participants. Emma could feel it. The energy in the room crackled as their ideas resonated with the audience. Finally, as she wrapped up the presentation, a measure of confidence surged within her. The committee members exchanged glances, nodding thoughtfully. Then came the questions. They probed deeper into both her and Tyler's contributions, keenly testing their responses. Emma leaned into her newfound strength, articulately addressing their inquiries while keeping Tyler engaged and included. For once, instead of feeling burdened by the weight of their collaboration, she felt it as a shared alliance. Once the meeting concluded and the committee left, Emma turned to Tyler, anticipation dancing in her chest. "I didn't think you had it in you," he teased, though she could see genuine pride in his eyes. Yet behind that camaraderie, a new tension brewed, a question simmering just below the surface of their intuitive alliance. How would they navigate this new dynamic? Emma sensed that this breakthrough might alter the very fabric of their partnership. Would they emerge stronger or more estranged? The bold commitment to authentic collaboration felt fragile, suspended between possibility and uncertainty. What was next in their evolving relationship, now that the walls had begun to crack? Each confrontation with their own insecurities felt like a prelude to something larger on the horizon, a transformation that Emma was both eager and anxious to embrace. Transparency had opened the door, but where would it lead them? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow through the office windows, Emma felt the adrenaline from the presentation still coursing through her veins. Sitting back down at her work desk, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The meeting had exceeded her expectations. She could see that Tyler respected her newfound assertiveness, but uncertainty loomed. How would this shift affect their working relationship moving forward? Emma knew she had taken a leap into the professional unknown, acting not just as a supporting partner, but as a leader in her own right. She couldn't afford to retreat into the shadows, unsure if she truly belonged there. On the other hand, this new dynamic introduced an uncharted risk, a change she hadn't fully grasped. Did Tyler now see her as a rival or an equal? She opened her laptop again, but her mind was no longer focused solely on the project. She was ensnared by thoughts of how they might communicate their evolving roles. Emma had always admired Tyler's creative vision, yet now she wondered if she could contribute equally, or even improve upon his initial ideas. Would he embrace the change, or would he resist? As she pieced together notes from their meeting, several questions flooded her mind. What if Tyler recoiled at her increased visibility? What if he felt his authority diminishing? At that moment, Emma realized that an essential conversation was needed. She couldn't simply tiptoe around the budding tension. The fragility of their alliance warranted clarity. When Tyler arrived at the office the next day, his demeanor was light, but Emma sensed an undercurrent of anxiety.
They exchanged pleasantries as he settled in, but there was a lingering, unspoken heaviness between them. "Can we talk about yesterday?" she ventured, heart racing. Surprised, Tyler paused, his blue eyes narrowing a bit. "Yeah, sure. You were great, by the way." "Thanks," she said, drawing in a deep breath. "I appreciated how you set the stage for me in the meeting, but there's something we need to address." He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. Perhaps he was bracing himself for the conversation. "All right, what's on your mind?" "I feel like our roles are shifting, and I want to be open about it. I enjoyed stepping up yesterday, but I also want to make sure we're on the same page about our collaboration moving forward. It feels different now, doesn't it?" Tyler nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "Yeah, I guess it does. But what do you mean by different?" This was it, the moment of vulnerability. Would she fully embrace this opportunity to define the dynamics of their partnership? She hesitated, weighing how much to admit. "I want to ensure we're both comfortable with taking on equal responsibilities. I don't want to become a source of friction between us. That's the opposite of our goal." Tyler's expression softened, revealing a flicker of relief. "Honestly, I was a bit intimidated by how well you did. I thought maybe you'd want to take over everything." The admission surprised Emma. She had assumed he might feel threatened. "I don't want that. I want us to thrive together, expand our ideas. I think we could create something really outstanding if we both lean in." As they spoke, the tension began to dissolve, replaced by an invigorating sense of possibility. It felt refreshing to share their concerns openly, navigating their insecurities together. "But how do we ensure we're collaborating effectively?" Tyler asked, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. "Let's create a framework for our future discussions. We can set a time each week to review, discuss what we want to focus on, give each other feedback, and check in on our comfort levels. I want this to feel like a partnership, not a power struggle." A smile broke across Tyler's face, and Emma felt a connection reignite. That sounds like a plan. Yet, as optimism swelled within her, Emma couldn't shake off the nagging discomfort that lingered at the back of her mind. This newfound openness had also revealed a deeper truth. Both she and Tyler had their own insecurities to face independently. Would this shared effort be enough to break down the walls that each had built around their individual vulnerabilities? As she navigated this fresh course, the confrontation with those uncertainties awaited her on the horizon. She could feel the trembling edge of transformation closing in, drawing her closer to the day when those hidden fears would demand to be confronted head-on. What revelations would emerge as they explore their expanded roles together? And would they be able to maintain their alliance under the pressure of honesty? Emma was beginning to realize that the real test lay ahead, twisting the threads of their partnership in ways she had yet to comprehend. Emma found herself standing at a crossroads, both professionally and personally. The warmth that had bubbled up between her and Tyler felt crucial, but it wasn't enough to settle her deeper concerns. The air around her hummed with tension, a silent reminder that change was on the horizon, brimming with uncertainty. She took a moment to breathe, but her mind remained restless, each thought spiraling back to her own insecurities. Would she be able to sustain this momentum, or was she merely riding a fleeting wave of confidence? The weekly review sessions she had suggested seemed both promising and daunting. The idea of structured conversations about their work gave her a sense of control, yet the prospect of vulnerability felt equally intimidating. Would Tyler hold her accountable? Would she fall short? As workdays turned into weeks, the rhythm of their collaboration began to solidify. What had started as an awkward interplay soon transformed into a more dynamic exchange. They tackled projects with a newfound synergy,
But even the timetable discussions could not mask the lingering discrepancies in their power balance. One afternoon, Emma observed Tyler in a brainstorming session with their colleagues. He was animated, leading a discussion that left little room for input from others, her included. Watching from the sidelines, a knot tightened in her stomach. Was he slipping back into old patterns, unintentionally sidelining her once again? Later that day, Emma decided to confront this internal conflict. She couldn't ignore how quickly her doubts shadowed her progress. Returning to her desk, she opened her laptop, eager to organize her thoughts. She drafted a list emphasizing her contributions over recent projects, noting everything she had achieved thus far. This exercise was not merely a boastful account. It was a stark reminder to herself that her voice mattered in their shared space. When their next weekly meeting arrived, Emma felt the anxiety turn into determination. She intended to reclaim her authority in their partnership. She had earned it. As they set the agenda, she brought forth her observations from the earlier brainstorming session. "I appreciate how enthusiastic you were today, Tyler, but I felt as though I couldn't interject my ideas," she stated firmly, each word crisp and deliberate. Tyler's brows knitted together, surprise flashing across his face. "You should have jumped in. You know I'm open to your ideas." "I know," Emma replied, her resolve unyielding, "but we need to create space for both our voices. If I'm quieter, it doesn't mean my contributions are less valuable. We need to ensure everyone feels invited to participate, including us." For the first time, Tyler looked reflective rather than defensive.
"You're right. I didn't mean to dominate. I'll work on being more inclusive." Each small concession felt monumental, signaling a shift towards a more collaborative approach. Yet the lingering questions about her place gnawed at her. Would this new balance hold weight in the long term? Days morphed into weeks, with little breakthroughs serving as markers of progress. Emma found ways to assert herself in meetings, suggesting changes and championing her ideas. However, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was off balance. Her need for approval, juxtaposed with her growing confidence, painted a confusing picture. Their progress was palpable, though the specter of uncertainty lingered. Each small victory bred new challenges. As Emma settled into her evolving role, the cracks in her confidence appeared again, fueled by an underlying fear of inadequacy. The tension within her transitioned from dormant to active, urging her to confront the whispers of self-doubt. What would emerge if she pushed past her limits? Would stability lead to genuine collaboration or chaos? As Emma faced the unfolding layers of this professional dance, she braced for a pivotal moment, the one that might reveal her true self hidden beneath the facade of partnership. Emma stood before her presentation board, the familiar lump of anxiety twisting in her stomach. The past few weeks had given her a taste of both empowerment and self-doubt. They had worked diligently on their project, yet every time she turned to Tyler during meetings, a specter of that initial rivalry squirmed underneath their collaborative efforts. But today was different. Today, she was ready. Emma took a deep breath, remembering the progress she had made. She knew that after putting her voice out there more and holding Tyler accountable, she had redefined their partnership. She no longer felt subdued. She had stepped into her own. With time dwindling before their final presentation, Emma resolved to make this moment matter. She had spent weeks extracting the essence of her grandmother's legacy, blending it with the vibrancy of her own unique perspective. Today, she would unveil not just the work they had done, but declare her confidence in her identity alongside Tyler. As they stood on the stage, Emma's heart raced not from terror, but from a rush of anticipation. The crowd blurred into a sea of faces, and Tyler began to speak, appropriately setting the stage. But this time Emma interrupted him, intentionally, her voice strong and clear. Adding to what Tyler mentioned, I want to focus on the relevance of our individual stories. Legacies thrive because of both the triumphs and the struggles that shape us. They echo in the contributions that seem insignificant at first glance. She could see Tyler nodding, encouraging her as she transitioned smoothly into her segment. This was the crux of her moment, to show how traditions and personal endeavors could harmonize. As she guided the audience through their findings, Emma felt a surge of confidence rooting her feet to the ground. The fear of being overshadowed slipped away, replaced by a steady undertow of exhilaration. She was captivated by the narrative she was crafting, where her grandmother's work intertwined seamlessly with her own aspirations. The applause showered upon them felt invigorating, but even more fulfilling was the shift she sensed in her interaction with Tyler. They'd created a genuine partnership, not just coexisting, but collaborating in a way that uplifted both their identities. In their feedback session afterward, several committee members acknowledged her contributions, remarking on how her understanding of legacy added depth to the project.
It was as if they were applauding not just her project, but the essence of who she had become. The fusion of her past with her present was acknowledged, affirming her place and worth in the narrative. As they walked away from the stage, Emma turned to Tyler, both elation and trepidation swirling within her. "I think we nailed it," she said, a genuine smile illuminating her face. "Absolutely," he replied, a smile slowly formulating on his lips. "You completely stole the show in the best way." His compliment felt authentic, dissolving any lingering doubts. Emma realized that she wasn't just some team player, she was an impactful force, and she had earned her place alongside Tyler. As they exited the building, she felt lighter, as if she had shed years of self-doubt in a matter of moments. Her work on the project was more than an academic exercise, it was a reclamation of her identity. Emma had not only reclaimed her legacy, but had also built a bridge of understanding with Tyler that left room for growth, collaboration, and harmony. Her journey would continue as she navigated her place in the world, seeking to inspire others through their stories while also honoring her own. There was no denying the hurdles that remained, but she had conquered the biggest shadow of all, her own self-doubt. She could trust herself and claim her power, standing tall in her truth. With each step towards the future, Emma whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." Before leaving you, I have a crucial message to share. You need to subscribe now to this channel so you won't miss future exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for these incredible journeys. And comment your reactions and theories about this riveting ending. Finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your support means everything, and only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of it.